This is a very special video for me to make for several obvious reasons. It's not an understatement to say that this brand is universally trusted around the globe by the world's greatest warriors. Every syllable uttered in this humble test will be ruthlessly scrutinized by the internet. And know that any criticism of the helmets I put forward will be purely made out of my own passion and my own objective opinion. I sacrifice a lot of my own treasure to make these tests for very little direct reward. And although I make warrant officer pay now, I'm perpetually broke as hell. I really should sell out. Thankfully, this OPSCORE XR and the OPSCORE SF helmet have been provided to me by the tactical gear vendor and notorious PSYOP enabler Weapons Outfitters. The SF helmet was used exclusively by his gear models, and although it didn't retain her scent, several long hairs were still present on the liner. Thank you very much, Weapons Outfitters. The XR helmet retails for $2,100 and the OPSCORE SF retails for $2,000. That means on helmets alone, Weapons Outfitters gave me the equivalent of $4,000. I don't know why OPSCORE helmets cost this much. This inflation could be a combination of brand name and the fact that they probably make most of their money on government contracts, but I'm not sure if there's a correlation between money spent and overall protection. Element Training Complex as well once again provide the venue for testing these helmets and some of the weapons and ammo used here. I'm very lucky to know these folks. They've made my life way easier by providing a safe place for testing and weapons that are needed to cover all my bases. Both of these OPSCORE helmets are made mostly out of polyethylene. Fast helmets were born out of the same program that gave us the Enhanced Combat helmet around 10 years ago. And that ECH had some interesting results in that was able to stop AP steel 9mm ammunition that Kevlar universally fails against. However, it struggled against high energy impacts. Keep that in mind about polyethylene helmets going forward. In fact, I would suggest watching the ECH video before continuing with this one. And I'm not saying that just to shill myself. I just call it foreshadowing. First, let's take a swing at the OPSCORE XR. It represents a lightweight NIJ-3A offering that weighs in at about 2.7 pounds. That's a pretty good weight for NIJ-3A. Interestingly, there's this weird claim on the spec sheet and retail page. Lightweight design capable of resisting 7.62x39 lead core projectile. The spec sheet goes into more detail of the weight and feet per second of that projectile, and I've gotten a decent approximation of that round with this old American Eagle ammunition. So let's test it.
Ready? Yep. Good low. So I think we've kind of debunked that resistance to penetration thing pretty concretely. Like we talk about helmets not breaking necks because it's a myth, right? And then we get this shit because it is a myth. A helmet shouldn't break a neck, but this is an exception, obviously.
Wow, failed deformation. What a surprise. In all seriousness though, the round didn't penetrate, so the resistance to the penetration is technically true. But with all respect to OPSCORE, using it as an advertising point is pretty disingenuous. This is not an impressive start, but there are plenty of antidotes of OPSCORE stopping rifle hits. So please wear your equipment. Let's move down to our soft point 240 grain 44 Magnum projectiles at 1600 feet per second. This round is hitting with 200 more feet per second than what the helmet is rated for.
Yeah. That's just that crack running down right there.
Oh yeah, I see. So it's a fair hit. Okay, I saw that. That must be from the rail.
It's like where the pieces of the lead just shat out the bottom of it.
No.
I think that's just
energy.
it getting stretched so much because you can see that crack runs all the way down there. It's just a stress fracture.
This is like equal to the ECH.
Yeah, literally.
As with the AK hit, I can say with certainty that the NIJ-3A 44 Magnum hit will also leave the OPSCORE XR with TBI-inducing deformation. Let's see if the steel-jacketed M39B round has similar results on the OPSCORE XR as it did with the ECH.
Good hit.
And very good results. This is definitely good.
The helmet stopped the round with acceptable deformation. This about confirms it. I strongly suspect that the ECH and the OPSCORE XR are the same helmet shells with simply different cuts.
So I'm calling this now in the recording so people don't think I'm full of shit, but I think the hard hat veterans helmet might have a chance over the OPSCORE just because it's got so much more material. Like the OPSCORE is just so much lighter. But we're gonna find out.
OPSCORE costs more money, so it's better.
Yeah, right, costs more money.
The SF is the lightest OPSCORE ballistic helmet, and again the spec sheet in my opinion is a little misleading. It says the NIJ standard 3A followed by in parentheses 9mm FMJ at 1400 feet per second. What they mean by this is that the helmet isn't rated NIJ 3A, but that they tested with a higher velocity 9mm as opposed to the 200 feet per second slower 9mm round that's used for the 2A test. Say I'm nitpicking, but I think this is a little misleading because the SF isn't a 3A NIJ helmet. So why mention 3A at all in the spec sheet? Here's what happens when you hit it with the same Magnum load.
That's very convenient. Was that penetration? That's not good.
Oh, Billy.
So
I tried to get it dead in the middle, but
I think
he's dead.
The round blew out the polyethylene protection, a terrible but not unexpected result. I do have other reasons for using a Magnum round here in relation to a hardhead veteran's helmet, but we'll get into that in a future video. The more relevant test is the results of what the helmet is actually rated for, 9mm FMJ at 1400 feet per second. We used an 8-inch barrel pistol caliber carbine in order to get closer to that 1400 feet per second.
Yeah.
Deformation, worse.
Really? Damn.
Yeah.
I think you're like you were saying with less material.
The deformation looks worse than what it is, as it isn't very deep and it's spread evenly around the impact area. The SF should honestly be considered a frag-proof bump helmet. For the protection you get, I really don't think that $2,000 cost is all that justified.
Okay. It's still bad.
Oh my god.
Like people could argue that this is compromised, but
Compromise my dick, dude.
I mean, oh man.
Oh my god.
that plastic baby that's like that's literally
That's it. That's the hit.
Okay.
It
So
just deflected.
it got caught by the crown and went up. Okay, cool.
Oh.
The OPSCORE XR is a fairly decent helmet, especially because it provides protection against steel core rounds. Kevlar helmets don't. It without a doubt would have no issues against shrapnel. So it's a fine helmet. I just hope someone invents a solution to reduce the deformation. So the XF and the SF are extremely pricey and don't provide any extra protection advantage to the end user that comes alongside that extra cost. However, there's also the issue of the OPSCORE RF1 helmet. This is the heaviest and one of the newest OPSCORE helmet offerings. Its shell weighs a pound heavier than the XR. That helmet also claims resistance to various steel cored rifle rounds, and probably deserves a video of its own. That's why I humbly ask you to donate to my Patreon, as it's a $3,200 helmet, and I think Weapons Outfitters are probably tapped out by now. It also isn't the only rifle rated helmet I'm looking at either, and a fan has sent me a Velocity Systems slap plate to test as well. That test and more are on the way. Big shout out to Weapons Outfitters for providing these helmets. He was honestly just as curious as I was about how the OPSCORE is actually fair compared to other helmets. And I hope this video has provided some answers. This video was edited by the highly talented Prism, and the graphics were made by Sleepy. You can follow them here. I'm in flight school. I don't have time for this shit.